Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It keeps us motivated and doing what we do. If you want to join the Nerd Night Gaming or the Team Set Pass Facebook groups, there are links down in the description below. But that is not why you're here. You are here to learn how to beat Dragon Link and how to beat infernobles. We're going to cover a handful of things like what do they do, how to stop them, how to break their boards if you can, cards that you can side, and then some things to keep an eye out on so that your opponent doesn't misplay on purpose or on accident, such as like if you get locked into something and they don't quite listen to their locks, things like that. So we're going to start out with Dragon Link's Rockets, however we want to talk about it. And yeah, let's get on into it. So Rockets, there's a lot of different variations ranging from 40 cards to 60 cards, the FTK, and a new build really going around is one I personally like. I do play Rockets a lot, so I'm actually going to show you guys a sample hand, and we'll kind of talk about it as we go through it. Infernobles, unfortunately, I can't quite do it because I don't have all the combos down, like memorized very well, so it's kind of hard for me to just give you guys a replay and honestly try to teach you much from it. But as someone who's played against the deck, I will just share some of my experiences and things I've noticed or talked to others about on how to take that deck down. But Rockets will go a little more in depth, as well as future decks that I know a little bit better. Some other things we will be doing, the how to beat dinos, and not sure what other one we'll do with that, will be up midweek sometime. But anyway, so yeah, this version of Rockets that we're going to show, you rip 2 cards and then you end on Savage, Arclight, Heavenly Spheres, and the Buster Lock. And you can actually make Dragoon if you have the extenders for it on top of all that. So it's really kind of a pain to deal with. A lot of chain blocking. Like Dragon Link is so good because they can chain block. So cards like Ash a lot of time aren't going to be very effective because the card you want to hit, you're not going to have a chance to hit it. So other variations they can use like Silver Rocket and look at your extra deck and banish one of your key combo pieces. They put up a lot of big boards, multi-negates, extra deck locks, and they just play through so much because it feels like 90% of the deck is extenders. So how do we actually take it down? Well, to beat Rockets, the easiest way is multiple hand traps and make them count. And you got to remember too, like, stopping a deck doesn't necessarily mean killing their turn, stopping them out, right? Sometimes it means making it to where they only end on, 1 negate or 2 negates as opposed to ending on 3 negates and the extra deck lock. Like, you got to look at the bright side and try and make the most of it, make it easiest to play through their board on your turn. Oh, and did we mention they also rip cards from your hand, by the way? So yeah, we're going to rip 2 from your hand, extra deck lock you, bounce you, and have multiple negates with this deck. So it's a headache, and it does so much, and it's obviously one of the best decks of the format. If you are curious to our opinions on that, we do have a tier list that we put up the other day. It's one of our tier 1 decks. Make sure you guys go check that one out. So anyway, what are we going to hand trap against Dragon Link? Well, I am kind of an advocate for hitting decks early. A lot of people, I feel like, don't necessarily expect you to because it's not the correct play. But obviously, if you have one hand trap, don't do it. But stopping Romulus can be really big because Romulus does one of 2 things, depending on how they're playing it. It either goes for the Divine Lance to get out the Phalanx, Dragunity Phalanx, which enables them to go into like their Synchro plays, Helka Fibrex, things like that that you'll see here in a little bit. Or their Dragon Ravine, which they pitch a card, send Apsa Router to the graveyard. Now they get their Tracer to the hand, and they can continue to combo off that way. So stopping Romulus is a big thing if possible. Keeping in mind certain hand traps are going to be better than others. Imperm, probably one of the best hand traps in this matchup because it can dodge all the chain blocking, like I said. Otherwise, Gamma is always really strong because it negates and it destroys. Downside to Gamma is kind of the downside to Ash against Dragon Link because chain blocking, they can chain block the Gamma, so you're going to have a little bit more issues trying to take out the cards that you actually want to, whereas Effect Veiler, Impermanence, things like that get around the chain block. Another key point, at least in the variant we will be showing, is Lane Cross. So decks that summon Lane Cross obviously do it because they want the tokens. And here, however, if you negate the Lane Cross, they can still go into Needle Fiber. So you're not really going to stop their play, but you are going to alter it because they're not going to get out um, as much as easily, because the link cross, they'll get their 2 tokens, go into a marcher, bring back the phalanx, then go into Halqifibrax and get their Vylon Cube, which is how they're going to get Smoke Grenade, and then they're going to rip a card from your hand that way, and then they're also going to go into a Arclight shortly after, which brings up Nibiru. Is it good again? For a while here, I actually wasn't even siding it, but against Dragon Link, it kind of is. Other matchups, maybe not, so we're not here to talk about if it's main deck worthy or side deck worthy, but how is Nibiru versus Rockets? It can be good, but again, you're running into this issue where usually by the time, well, not usually, by the time they can put up Arclight, yes, you can Nibiru them, and if you do, awesome, that's great, but they're also going to have 4 of their starting cards in their hand, plus like their boot sector launch and possibly other ones depending on which starter they started with, Chaos Space, Safer, things like that. So you can Nibiru them, you stop them, and you kind of hit certain combo pieces of theirs. Best chance would be probably right after the Halqifibrax summons the Vylon Cube, because now Vylon's, no, maybe, not even exactly sure, because you don't necessarily want Vylon to hit the field, because then it goes to the graveyard, and they're still going to get their Smoke Grenade and look at your hand and rip a card. So probably right after the Link Cross, but then downside being, they still have so many extenders, you're not necessarily going to stop their play, but this goes back to how we mentioned in the beginning. Sometimes you need to try to just hinder their play, and this will kind of too depend on what deck are you playing, what's your hand, because if you have outs for a lesser board or whatever, Nibiru might be the option you're looking for. Oh, again, I'm not advocating for playing it. We will be doing a side decking / tech video in the near future, but for now we're not quite there. So as far as hand traps go, guys, I really suggest Impermanence being probably the best hand trap. Other ones can be good, but if you can negate the Romulus, and especially like Gamma, if they don't chain block Romulus and you can negate and destroy it, you'll probably be in a pretty good position. But a lot of the time they will actually chain block it. Otherwise, yeah, Link Cross too, if you can negate it and destroy it, kind of leave them a little more stranded. I mean, they're going to use their extenders and probably get out Savage with possibly the Buster Lock, but I'd rather stare down a Buster Lock Savage than get 2 cards ripped from my hand and stare down the same Buster Lock Savage with an Arclight and a Spheres. So there we go with that. What do you do if they actually build their whole board and we, have to try to break it? So Dark Ruler No More is probably one of the better cards to do it, but you're still going to have to deal with the Buster Lock. And the real downside to Dark Ruler No More, again, they get to look at your hand with Smoke Grenade and they rip a card. So unless you draw it for turn or you open multiples, you're not really going to actually be able to use it. And additionally, they will also have Levineer rip a card at random, luckily, from your hand. Some other things that could work would be like a Droplets or a Talent after you bait out 1 negate, and then you can either force another one or continue to bait their negates and then Talents and take one of their cards and do your plays. Keeping in mind, if you take their, say, Savage and they have the Buster equipped to it, you still can't summon from your extra deck because it's on their side of the field still. It's not like your opponent's locked out now. That's not how the game works. So things otherwise like a Kaiju on the Savage so that you can at least use your extra deck. Try to play through a couple of the negates can help for sure. Otherwise, before we get into the side deck, let's go ahead here and look at this opening hand. So for this opening hand, we're going to kind of just start out where we have, this hand is ridiculous. You have one of the better extenders in Collapse Serpent. You have your Quick Launch, which is just crazy. Your Tracer and your Black Metal Dragon, which is one of the better starters. This hand too, if you didn't have like your metal, you could normal Tracer, special Abs Router, and just go off that way. But here we're going to say normaling, and right here, because now you can chain block, and then you're going to banish the Striker to summon your Darkness Metal Dragon. So then Darkness Metal Dragon brings back your Black Metal Dragon. And then here's where another reason, like I said, it gets hard because you want to be able to use the impermanence to get around chain blocking here. Some people might not do it because it's like, well, other Red Eyes cards would be Red Eyes Black Dragon and Red Eyes Fusion, and you don't want them in your hand. Except you don't want to open them. I mean, you don't want to search Red Eyes Fusion here whatsoever, but chain blocking the Romulus is really, really important. So I mean, not trying to show you guys how to play Dragon Link, but kind of um, using your Metal Dragon, because searching this out at this point, it doesn't matter because you already have your opening hand, you already have what you need, you're not one card short, you're just searching it out to chain block your Romulus. And then you chain block the Romulus, which goes into the Divine Lance. So now you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as the chain blocking. So trying to negate this, and say you negated Romulus, this would be the hand that you would be dealt with still, so it's going to be a tough one. I mean, was like a really, really good hand. You just opened all these extenders because now you have your boot sector so you can get to your tracer still. You have your quick launch for your tracer. You have your collapse serpent to just continue playing through disruptions. So this hand would be tough to stop even with multiple hand traps. But yeah, so we're showing off here how it's hard to negate with like a gamma or a impermanence. Right here, you could gamma and negate and destroy the link cross, and then they would just have the phalanx on the field. They already used their normal summon. The graveyard's only darks, so we can't actually use the collapse serpent, which is actually one good thing. Wyver Burster right here is 100 times better because the deck really doesn't play too much for light monsters. I mean, we have Link Cross right here, so that'll enable it here very shortly. But if you gamut it, I guess the Link Cross would be engraved then. You can special your Collapse Serpent, go into like a Halka Fibrax, summoning, you know, whatever you need, and then you would be able to also search out your Wyver Burster to continue playing. You boot sector, you could get your tracer out, and then you can special summon your Absa out, or you can quick launch a card out. There's so much you can do here. Droll and Lockbird, maybe side it. I mean, they do get a lot of cards to their hand. We already added boot sector, we added red eyes. Actually, we added 2 red eyes cards, and the boot sector. We got the Divine Lance too, so Droll's looking like a pretty good side card against Dragon Link. Continuing just the combo so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about as far as what the deck can do and how we can out things. So then that's how they get to their Viline Cube. If you can hold your negates till now and stop that, you will at least save 1 card in your hand. And again, that's another point where now you can gamma it. I think personally, if you are playing hand traps, I do almost prefer the power cards to hand traps, like Dark Ruler No More, Forbidden Droplet, things like those. But you gamma the Halka Fibrax here, and you at least keep the Viline Cube from seeing the field. And now they still have the Phalanx and the 1 token, so they're not necessarily in a bad position because they also still have 6 cards in hand, most of which being extenders. And the fact that you can just make Verde through so many disruptions is ridiculous. But now they're going to go ahead and make an Arclight, go into their Guard Dragon plays. And remember, this is all off 2 cards, guys. Basically, it's crazy what the deck can do. One key thing we do want to point out is, remember here, Tracer, when they pop a card, they're locked into the extra deck, can only special summon dark monsters. And you might notice I've had people on Dueling Book actually use Tracer too early and then try to like go into like their Hierarchic Seal or things like that, and it's like, no, you're locked into darks from the extra deck. So that's one of the things to keep an eye on out for, that is that Tracer locks them into darks from the extra deck. Additionally, if they are not playing this variant and they're still doing like the quad boral combo like that, when he pops a link, I'll discard a card, pop a link, summon back all their rockets. They can't summon a link 2 or lower, which means they can't summon Verde on you. Keep that in mind. Other one that I've seen as comment, a lot of people trying to equip Dragon Buster to Dragoon, which you can't. They can equip it to Verde, but that's a lot easier to beat over. But they can't equip it to Dragoon because neither player can target it. Those are the 3 most common misplays I have seen playing against different Dragon Link decks. So yeah, we already have Arclight now. Now we have Savage, Hierarchic Seal. You have your Union Carrier. Like I said, this hand was just all extenders. We didn't even use our boot sector launch, and we still have Tracer in hand. But now you're going to go into your Anaconda. And like I said, this could have been in the deck still if you just didn't use the search. But since we use that search to protect our Romulus and just chain block, it really makes it a headache for our opponent to deal with. So now they're going to go ahead and get Dragoon. And then, oh, not sure where Dragoon, oh, previous, that's why I was going to say, where did Dragoon go? And then Union Carrier will equip the Savage with the Dragon Buster. And actually, sometimes, depending on the deck I was going against, I would actually equip the Verde if I know they're playing like a bunch of Kaijus or something like that. Because then, like, if you equip the Verde, a Kaiju, they'd probably have to Kaiju Dragoon at that point. But, because if they could get rid of the lock and the negate, they're going to do it. But then you still, you split up the lock and the negate to kind of play around Kaijus a little bit better. Additionally, if they have Sphere Mode, you got Savage, Dragoon, and they're probably going to take out the Buster Lock. So then you'd still have your Arc Light. And, I mean, I guess actually if I was them, I'd probably go for Arc Light, Dragoon, and Verde, get rid of the Lock, the best monster, and the Floodgate, essentially. I mean, you'd still have to play around a Bounce and one Negate, but, you at least have a semi-chance. Which brings us to the side deck cards. So what cards would be good on the side? We already kind of mentioned Droll and Lockbird. We already kind of mentioned Nibiru as not being a main deck card, but maybe sided in. Otherwise, Sphere Mode is going to be a very strong card this format. I can see plenty of decks putting out big boards, especially like with Dragoon. So if Sphere Mode is going to be a popular card you're going to hear us talking about in these videos, I do think it's really good. Obviously, your deck has to be able to function without the normal summon if you have Sphere Mode, because a lot of these top tier decks have good recovery, and if you Sphere Mode them and then you do nothing, you're not going to be in a good position. I mean, a deck like this, they burn through their literally the entire extra deck for the combo, so a little bit better to Sphere Mode them because they're going to have a harder time recovering. Otherwise, would Token Collector be effective? I mean, you can kind of stop a little bit. You stop the Link Cross stuff, but by then they'd still have Phalanx and Link Cross on the field, so they could still go into their Helka Fibrax and do combos that way. But again, they're not going to... I mean, they probably wouldn't go for their Viline Cube at that point, or I guess level 3 or lower from Helka Fibrax, so they probably would. But they're going to have I don't want to say hard time making a board because they're still going to get Verde for sure, probably Union Carrier and Savage because Rockets make it pretty good, so you're still going to multiple negates and the Buster Lock to deal with, so maybe Token Collector not being the best option. But going first, siding for it if your deck's already not ready for it. Some really good cards are Summon Limit, the Artifact Package being Sanctum and Scythe, and Silent Graveyard is one of my sleeper cards of the format. You'll see it in our tech video coming pretty shortly for you guys. But yeah, Silent Graveyard turning off, because I mean, what graveyard effects did we actually use this turn? We had Wyverburst or Collapse Serpent. Actually, we might not have did a whole lot, but some of these, well, I guess actually the whole combo started with one with our Black Metal Dragon being when he went to the graveyard. So right there was like right in the start of the combo. Silent Graveyard would have taken care of it. So that's going to be a card that you will also see in a handful of these videos because so many decks do have effects going off in the graveyard. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this part of the video, and let us know down below if you feel there's something better strategy to take against them, because we are also always trying to learn, as we can only learn from what we actually play and see, but we don't play and see everything. So let us know down below how you liked the video, if you learned anything new, if you already knew it all, or if you have some tips to teach us, because we definitely appreciate it. Like I said, we're always trying to learn too.